Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the Jason Tatum 1. The Jason Tatum 1 was first released in March of this year and it was retailed at 120 US dollars, and if you're in Canada that would be 160 Canadian dollars. As you all know, this shoe was debuted in the past All-Star game. Jason Tatum actually wore these and got the MVP, of course. What a perfect marketing campaign for Jordan Brand. It's kind of interesting how Jordan Brand decided to roll these out. From the jump, they gave us a variety of different colorways, including the lemonade, the St. Louis colorway, the barbershop colorway. There were so many of them. The Zoo colorway is the debut colorway, and this colorway is to Jason Tatum's song Deuce. If you're an NBA fan, I'm sure we all know Deuce and we all love him. He's a legend in the NBA world. Just in terms of the aesthetics, I'm not the biggest fan of this colorway. I actually like the St. Louis and the barbershop colorway a lot more than this one. However, this colorway is still a lot nicer in hand and on feet compared to when I first saw the pictures. When I first saw this shoe got leaked, I sent a photo to my friend. I was like, this shoe is the ugliest shoe that I've ever seen in my life. But after having these in hand, actually it's not the worst. This red looks nice with this kind of beige color for the foam, and overall I say aesthetics wise is definitely very different from a traditional basketball shoe that we see these days, and I kind of like it. And it's also interesting how the Jason Tatum 1 as a debut shoe is so different from the Luka 1. From the same company, the Luka ones didn't really have a lot of the storytelling, the details and stuff. None of the colorways really had a story tied into it. That's not the case with the Jason Tatum 1. Each colorway that Jordan Brand came out with has a story tied with it. There's also this St. Louis colorway that pays tribute to his hometown, the barbershop colorway, the lemonade colorway. All of them has a story to it, which is really interesting to me. Now moving on to the tech breakdown of this shoe. So in terms of the upper, it actually features Leno weave. At this point, I don't think anyone is too unfamiliar with Leno weave. It was used in the most recent mainline Jordan Brand basketball shoes. A lot of people had a lot of complaints with the implementation of the Leno weave on the Jordan 37. However, this Leno weave used on the Jason Tatum 1 is a lot more reinforced than that one. So I don't think you're gonna have any concerns. Because of this material and other implementations of material with the shoe, this shoe came out to be really light, and Jordan Brand is actually saying that this is the lightest shoe that they have in their line, which is really cool. The upper also features leather material. As you can see, it kind of reinforces the areas that needs reinforcement on the shoe, and there's also this nice leather heel patch area. And in terms of the design, this shoe is really shocking in a way, mostly because of this hollow bottom design, kind of like the Eclipse plate that Jordan Brand was using in the Jordan 34, 35 and 36. So basically this forefoot or this midfoot area is completely cut out. You can see the material in here and then also the zoom unit at the front. It's a cool design. I like when you can actually see the tech within the shoe. And that brings me to the cushioning setup in the shoe, which features a large unlock zoom unit in the forefoot. You can see how large it is. Actually covers basically the whole forefoot. In the heel area, it actually just features what Nike calls soft foam. They didn't really say it's Cushionlom or Phylum or whatever. Okay, so moving on to the actual performance review of this shoe. First, we're gonna talk about the fit and lockdown. This is the area that I probably hate the most of the shoe, just because the overall fit is a little bit iffy to me. I went in the store, I tried these on because I was scared of the Leno weave material. I had issues with the Air Jordan 37, which I had to go down a full size for that shoe. This shoe, I went in, I tried it on, and I had to go a half size down because I do have narrower feet. This shoe's forefoot, it's actually pretty forgiving, right? If you have a wide feet, I think you're gonna be good with these. It has a pretty wide forefoot area. I really don't like whenever Jordan Brand uses this Leno weave material. I know it cuts down on the overall weight of the shoe, but for me, it's just not enough padding for me to have a secure lockdown. I had to really crank on the laces and kind of strangle my feet into the shoe so that my feet doesn't move around in it. And that caused a lot of trouble for me. Because of how I need to tie down the laces, it really pressed down on my feet, and the blood circulation in my foot starts to get bad and started to experience even numbness towards the end of the game. And whenever I felt like, you know, I can loosen up the laces a little bit, then I would have some lockdown issue, especially in the forefoot. I always feel like my feet is sliding around in them. Even going down half a size, I still had a little bit of a problem with it. So if you have narrow feet, I really probably would not recommend the shoe. And if you really want to get it, just go in the store, try it on, see if it works for you. For someone with wider feet, I think this would be actually a great choice for you, just because the forefoot is pretty wide. But if you have high volume feet in terms of the vertical size of your feet, like I do, I'd say this shoe is probably not the greatest, just because of the issue that I talked about. The laces really presses on your feet a lot. And now moving on to the cushioning setup of the shoe, which is the most interesting part in this shoe, in my opinion. Like I talked about before, this shoe features a large unlocked zoom unit in the forefoot and just soft foam in the heel. In the midfoot, there's literally nothing. It's completely hollow. When you first put this shoe on, one thing that really bothered me was I could feel where the shoe is hollow. I can feel where the foam starts in the shoe, and then kind of feels like the foam bulges up a little bit. And it's actually quite significant when you first try it on. But playing in it after a little bit, you don't really notice the bulge as much. So if you don't mind that, then it shouldn't be a huge problem. Just in terms of how the forefoot feels, the unlocked zoom unit is a little bit underwhelming to me. It's not the most bouncy and soft zoom unit that I've ever felt. I know why they call it unlocked zoom is because all these holes and this hollow area allows the zoom unit to expand a lot. So I was expecting a very bouncy feeling, but not really with this shoe. On the contrary, the heel area, the soft foam that Nike calls it, it's actually pretty nice. The heel foam actually feels really thick. When I was playing, it really had a nice compression, a nice little bounce back as well. So I enjoyed the heel setup actually more than the zoom unit in the front. And overall, I would say this cushioning setup is more court feel than crazy bouncy and stuff like that. I would say like it's enough impact protection for me. It's just nothing too impressive. Next, moving on to the traction performance of this shoe. It's also a very interesting design, very different from a traditional basketball shoe. In order for Jordan brand to cut down on the weight of the shoe, they decided to only keep these two paws as rubber, and then the rest of the shoe is just foam, kind of like the setup in the Curry Flow technology where it just uses the foam for traction. This adds two extra rubber material to make sure that you're more covered in the front. I've heard a lot of people having issue with this shoe just because of the heel area, the foam area didn't provide great traction for them. But for me, because I mostly like play 90% of the time on my forefoot, so I didn't really notice the heel area bothering that much. Overall, I would say traction worked actually pretty well for me, surprisingly. This translucent wavy pattern on the forefoot actually gave me quite great coverage. It actually squeaks quite a bit with the forefoot as well. So I played dusty courts, clean courts with these. I never really slipped and felt insecure with these. So the traction, I give it a pass. If you are someone that plays in your heel or the midfoot area a lot more than I do, then I can see why there could be some concerns. In terms of durability, it's horrible. Yeah, it's not great, especially this heel foam area. I think the grooves are really thin as well. This area is gonna wear down very fast. So definitely would not recommend playing with these outdoors. Last and not least is the stability and support within the shoe. It's actually pretty good for a lightweight shoe like this. The foam comes up and cages the lateral side of the shoe a lot. This lino weave material is actually a lot thicker than the one that we saw in the Air Jordan 37, which is great, and provides really nice lateral lockdown. But in order to get that lateral lockdown, you really need to crank on the laces if you have narrow feet like I do. So again, that was an issue for me. Once the laces are all cranked down, I really didn't have a problem. It didn't feel like my feet is gonna go over the shoe or roll over on itself. The medial side of the shoe has this a little bit of rubber caging and the leather caging over here as well. I didn't really experience any issue with this part as well. So I say lateral support is pretty good. In terms of lateral stability, So you can see the base is actually pretty wide, and this foam material protrudes out quite a bit. It acts as a lateral outrigger. When I was playing, I didn't really feel like, you know, I was gonna roll my ankle or I had any concerns. Because of the good forefoot core feel, I actually felt pretty secure playing in these in terms of lateral. However, when we start to talk about the torsional and the overall rigidity of the shoe, there are definitely some concerns as well, and a lot of that has to do with this hollow middle part again. And because of this shoe is hollow in the middle, it doesn't really feature a traditional shank plate, so this shoe loses a lot of stiffness in terms of basketball shoe, and you can bend the shoe very easily. It folds over on itself. In terms of torsional, I can bend the shoe over very easily. So if you're someone that's a lot bigger and play with a lot more force and you put a lot of torque in your shoe, I think you might have some concerns with this one. But if you're just a shooter like me, just runs back and forth most of the time, I think you will be fine, because I didn't really notice, you know, this issue a lot. So that takes me to the conclusion of today's video. Would I recommend the Tatum1 to you guys? I would still say yes. This is a fine basketball shoe in my opinion. There's absolutely nothing too amazing about it other than the overall looks and the shocking design that Jordan Brand decides to go with this shoe. It's just a fine performer. It's solid in many performance categories. However, there are also some concerns that you gotta live with this really minimal design. Definitely would recommend this shoe to a guard or wing player who likes a really light shoe and likes to feel light on their feet. This shoe definitely helps you with that. But if you're a bigger player who needs a lot of support, definitely not the greatest option for you. Okay, so that wraps it up for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.